Good evening. We have the latest here on Hurricane Milton at the weather farm. We have all the details on this Category 5 storm as it makes its way towards Florida. Join us next for more details. Hello again, my name is Christopher Hale. I am the Chief Meteorologist here at the weather farm with live breaking coverage of Hurricane Milton as it makes its way through the Gulf of Mexico. We see from the National Hurricane Center, we see Milton has made its way past the Yucatan Peninsula and it's making its trajectory on its way toward Florida. We do have an area of concern that is sprung up here outside of the Bahamas. It now has a 30% chance of development over the next 2 days. If we take a look at this map over the next 7 days, we see again it has an area of development. Again, Hurricane Milton. Leslie has strengthened once again to a hurricane out in the central Atlantic, but it really doesn't pose any concerns to land masses at this time. Again, all eyes right now are on Hurricane Milton. So let's again dive into the details behind this Category 5 system. At the 8 o'clock hour, Hurricane Milton was centered at 23 degrees north, 86.9 degrees west. It was about 440 miles southwest of Tampa, Florida. It was a Category 5 storm with winds at 165 miles per hour, and it was moving to that east-northeast at about 10 miles per hour. Its pressure had dropped significantly. It had dropped to 902 millibars at the 8 o'clock hour. We can see it here on the infrared satellite. We see that well-defined eye here with Hurricane Milton as it makes its way. One thing about this particular radar site, if you notice on the left there, the coordinates of latitude, they do jump, so while it seems to be jumping back, it's actually a progression of images. So we see that eye wall being well defined. There was some hints about in the middle of the frame that maybe another eye wall replacement cycle was going on. We don't see that happening. In some of the later images, we've checked temperature of the core. We just don't see any evidence to support a second eye wall replacement cycle undergoing with Hurricane Milton. But the one thing that we have noticed in the latest aircraft reconnaissance flight that just finished their mission through the eye wall, we found pressures around 910, 913 millibars. They did find one on their initial pass through of 904 millibars, but as it's made its way down, it's made its way back through, it was 910, and then this last one at 913. It seems like the hurricane is increasing in pressure, a sign that it might be slightly weakening, just ever so slightly, but it is a trend that we will be watching over the next 6 to 8 hours. Again, this gives us a broader look of where Milton is. Again, we can see that well-defined eye here. There's the Yucatan Peninsula. Here is Cuba. There are showers and storms ahead of Milton that are beginning to make their way onshore into Florida. Here is that disturbance that the National Hurricane Center has now sent out an investigation on. So we have a new investigation, and we should be getting some initial data about what is going on with this complex of storms. And then out here again, we have Hurricane Leslie as it continues to spin through the central Atlantic. So again, let's turn our attention back to Milton and what we think is going to happen over the next 24 to 36 hours. So this is our famous spaghetti plot of the different models that we use. So again, as I mentioned, at the 8 o'clock hour, Milton was just centered just north of the Yucatan, almost had cleared it. Many of those models have it making its way onshore within the next 36 hours. So that is likely late Wednesday night into very early Thursday morning. You see right here is Tampa. So all the models are now shifting it slightly to the south of Tampa. So more in that Sarasota area, Fort Myers Beach area. You are definitely on guard for the greatest impacts from Hurricane Milton. But again, even at 36 hours out, 30 hours out from landfall, this storm can still wobble anywhere from 20 to 40 nautical miles, and that can make a difference. So Tampa, while right now you're not in any of the spaghetti model's direct hits, you do bear watching to see what will happen as later model runs do go. And again, let's look at our intensity map. This is something we look at, again, as we mentioned, at the 8 o'clock hour from the National Hurricane Center. It was a strong Category 5. This one's, projects that most models are had it around 145. We know that it was actually much higher at 165. But then pay attention to these numbers at the bottom. So 24 hours is 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. So we draw that line up. We have 2 or 3 models that have it as a Cat 3, 3 or 4 have it as a Cat 4. Some have it still as a Cat 5 storm. But then very quickly, and you can tell that from the slope of the lines, we see that rapid decrease by the time it makes landfall. Now some of those models that do have it as a Cat 5 or a Cat 4 do keep it as a Cat 4 or Cat 5 as it makes landfall. We believe, however, here at the Weather Farm, that it will rapidly decrease in wind speed as it approaches land. And we'll talk about why that's going to happen here a little bit later on in our video. So I want to show you a couple models that we believe are handling the storm and its trajectory and its dynamics pretty well. The first one, again, like I did last night, I'm going to caution you that this is the European model. So let's just go ahead and pull this one up. Don't pay attention to the barometric pressures that this one has. The more important thing is the track and the organization of the convective thunderstorms around that eye wall and where it comes on shore. Again, this one wants to take it just slightly south of the Tampa region as it makes landfall. But again, this one, as we saw at the beginning, its barometric pressures are way too high for where the system was at the 8 o'clock update. And again, if we look at those winds from the European model, we could see wind gusts, as it makes landfall. Tampa, 63 miles per hour. Sarasota, 92. Even Cape Coral, you're at 59 miles per hour as potential wind gusts. But look at this deep gold section right here. This is an area where winds are 100 to 120 miles per hour. So this is one of those models that keeps it at a higher Category 3 as it makes landfall. But again, just because these winds are about 30 to 40 miles offshore, as that center of the storm does make it on landfall, we could see it rapidly decrease in wind speed and be more in the 90, 80, even 70 mile per hour wind range. And we see that here with the HWRF model. Now the HWRF model is very good at where it was at 8 o'clock as far as the barometric pressure. And if we look in the upper right up here, we see the different barometric pressure readings and the wind speeds. But look as it comes on shore, the winds are down to 85 knots, which is about 93 miles per hour. And as it does come on shore, it's right around 100. So right here at the very beginning of our loop, it's about 147 in knots, 160 miles per hour. So it has a good handle of where it started. So that's why I like this model. I like its overall trajectory. But you see the eye, the core, it starts to wobble and become a little disorganized as it gets closer to land. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute, what's happening or this particular model is picking up on. Another model we're going to look at is the HAPS-A model. Again, it has a good handle at the start, but then some of the dynamics that happen afterwards kind of fall apart. It does have winds as it approaches in the 90, 100 knots region, so about 110 miles per hour, but significant decrease as it comes on shore. So in the frame right before it came on shore, it showed a wind speed of 75 knots, which makes it about an 80 to 85 mile per hour hurricane. So it's definitely one of those models that rapidly decreases the intensity and the wind speed of Hurricane Milton as it comes on shore. So the National Hurricane Center at 8 o'clock, they put everything together, all the different models, and they come up with their cone of where they think the storm is going to go. So again, as I mentioned, it's just north of the Yucatan at 8 o'clock. Still a major hurricane at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow on Wednesday. It is still a major hurricane right before it makes landfall. Again, they have it at 1 a.m. on Thursday. Still a major hurricane, meaning Category 3 winds, 111 miles per hour and higher. And it has it as a hurricane as it crosses the Florida peninsula. Emerges out into the Atlantic still as a hurricane by 1 a.m. on Friday. And then it becomes a tropical storm. And then as it moves out into the Atlantic, it loses its wind speed, pressures rise and it loses its tropical characteristics. But right now, again, this is projected to come on shore just south of the Tampa region, again in that Sarasota area of Florida. So again, will this hold? We'll see. The National Hurricane Center will issue a new update at 11 o'clock Eastern tonight, and then again at 2 a.m. Eastern, 5 and 8 a.m. So check back tomorrow morning and see the latest on Milton. If we have time tonight, we might update quickly at 11 o'clock. We might post something on our socials. So if you've not subscribed to our socials, please do that. On X, it's at The Weather Farm. Instagram, at The Weather Farm. And if you've not subscribed to this channel, please click on the subscribe and like button, share it with your friends, and let them know about the information you get here. Click on the little bell icon so you can be notified of when we have new live streams that are going on and when new content is posted. So one more thing that I do want to talk about is, we talked about this a little bit. So why could the storm continue to weaken as it gets closer to Florida? Well, this map here is an example of the moisture that's in the atmosphere from 700 millibars up to 300 millibars in the atmosphere. So it takes that value, and where it's green, that's a moisture-rich environment. The storms can feed on that. It's why it's strengthening now. It's why it's been able to maintain that core. But look at these browns. As that counterclockwise rotation, the brown starts to move into the center of the storm. That is dry air that gets in, and it erodes the moist air particles as they rise in the system, and so they're not able to keep the upward momentum going in the center of the hurricane that's necessary for continued development and progression of the storm. Also, what's not on this map is there is wind shear that is going to attack this storm at the upper levels as well. So wind shear is if you have wind direction at one level and then it's in the opposite direction at much higher up in the atmosphere, those kind of forces counterbalance each other and they offset. And it's really destructive to thunderstorms. It kind of eats the caps off those thunderstorms and doesn't allow them to, again, to continue to develop and that upward momentum, all those things that are necessary to keep a hurricane going. So that's one reason that we believe that as this dry air wraps into the core of the system, as it approaches land tomorrow night, that the wind speeds will decrease, the pressure will rise, and this storm will not be the strong Category 5, 4, or possibly even Category 3 that some models are projecting it to be. So we hope you've enjoyed this update here on Hurricane Milton. Sorry about that. We hope that you'll check us out again, and we hope you have a great evening.